Alright, that was quite the entrance. Hello, welcome to Amber, the what's called a heartbreaking kinetic novel. I don't understand why it's called kinetic novel. Isn't it just a visual novel? Anyways, why is it in French? Okay, there we go. Auto? Let's... No, fuck it. Okay, audio level looks... okay. Yeah, it looks a little better now. Cool. Text. Alright. I have no idea what this is about. One of my subscribers on YouTube requested this, so I will just comply. Alright. It was 7 p.m. Oh god. On that beautiful yet cold autumn day, the wind shook the frail tree's branches across the street. Tristan Mallory made his slow, tired way. A whirlwind of leaves caught his attention and he stopped to contemplate them for a few minutes. A spray of colors danced around him, fragments of red, orange, yellow, spread at random, forming a mosaic that stretched on for as far as the eye can see endlessly. A rush of beauty in that gray and fuming city, in that noisy metropolis that was constantly exhaling bad air. Here's our main character. Coming back to his senses, the 30-year-old man shook his head. Now wasn't the time to be daydreaming, he had to go home. A long day already outweighed on his shoulders, but if he was completely honest, work wasn't the most tiring thing in his life. After all, honest, well-paid job represented somewhat of a luxury these days. Like any model employee, he consciously accomplished the task handed to him, no more, no less. No, what was really destroying him was a completely different form of fatigue, an appalling and crushing solitude that had been shadowing him for years, ever since his wife cheated on him, maybe? Left him? Alright, the light tinkling of the front door opening brought him back to Earth. It was already at his flat. A sad and silent living room was waiting for him. Goosebumps traveled down his spine as he entered the room. Driven by an almost desperate urge, he didn't even bother to hang his coat correctly, and began slamming all of the doors one after the other. Each time the same emptiness answered his pleas. He felt a rising dread within. His last hope, the last door, the forbidden room beyond. He opened it slightly and peeped inside. Of course, there was no one. He fell heavily onto the sofa. The crushing solitude came back in full force, crushing him again and again, wounding his face with invisible cuts, the cuts of time. It has been happening again. All of a sudden, Tristan Mallory felt immensely exhausted. He held his head in his hands, staring at the floor for many long minutes. Then after a while, what felt like an eternity, he abruptly got to his feet. He gathered all of the framed memories that he had on the furniture and stowed them away in a closet. The memories needed to be out of sight. When he was sure that there were no more pictures sticking out, Tristan put on his cloak and rushed outside. It was a bit chilly at first, a bit dark, but there was still enough light to see by. It was the ideal time to take a walk. At least, that's what he could have thought. As he hurried along the sidewalk, the 30-year-old man was anything but relaxed. Incredibly nervous, he walked around the places that were most familiar with him, looking for a serenity that seemed to be definitively out of reach. While passing a park near his home, Tristan Mallory suddenly heard a high-pitched, almost inaudible plea. His heart jumped, and he stopped. Hello? Amber, I presume? And I got an achievement. Awesome. In the dim light of the settling sun, he made out the silhouette of a little girl sitting on a swing with her head bowed. Tears were rolling down her cheeks. Afraid of startling her, he approached slowly and took a closer look. Her clothes were crumpled, she had neither a coat nor a scarf, and there was scratches on several spots of her skin, as if she had been in a fight. The park was completely deserted, and she seemed to have been there for a while. For a second, Tristan Mallory felt the temptation to abandon her there, to leave her to her fate, but very quickly he mentally chastised himself. He couldn't do that. So he placed himself in front of her and asked in a soft voice, "Is something wrong?" At first the little girl seemed not to hear him. She choked on her sobs, hiccuped and shuddered. Patiently, Tristan Mallory stroked her hair and repeated, "Why are you crying? What happened?" It took her a long minute to calm down a bit, but eventually she wiped out her tears and answered it with a faint voice interrupted by sobs. I don't know. I think I lost something important. Really important, but I can't remember what it was." Tristan Mallory, why is it his full name every time? I'm just gonna go Tristan. Tristan sighed, feeling a mixture of compassion and pity. She seemed so lost, so vulnerable. He wanted to hold her so tightly that her sadness would melt away. And at the same time, within him, a voice was telling him that he shouldn't be too forceful, that he shouldn't take advantage of her weakness. So he tried to not lose face, to look reassuring, yet in front of this sad little girl, he did not feel confident at all. Are you alone? Where are Mommy and Daddy? I don't know. You live far away from here? I don't know. What's your name? Amber. Well, Amber, you can't stay here out in the wind. You're going to catch a cold of you eventually. You don't want to get sick, do you? No, I hate being sick. See, you gotta warm yourself up somewhere. The night's getting close. But I don't know where to go. In that case, why don't you go to my place? That's kind of sketchy. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one thinking that. A 30-year-old man or a middle-aged man or whatever, a middle-aged man taking a child to his apartment house. Yeah. Is this kind of game? Oh god, well, I'm already in this rabbit hole. I'm gonna go through it. It's not that far away from here, and I'll make a much better sleeping place than the swing. Amber seemed wary, but she had no other choice but to follow him. He gently reached a hand to her, and for the first time she lifted her eyes. They were washed out, blurry with tears, and hesitant. He thought it was a good idea to force a smile to appear too reassuring. Even with the fatigue, Tristan showed the most convincing smiling face he could and caught her hand so fine, so frail, to help her get to her feet. Excuse me. The young girl's steps were wobbly and weak. She had probably not eaten all day long. Carefully, he led her to his place while making sure she wouldn't trip. The 30-year-old man removed his coat and shut the front door behind them. Make yourself at home. I'll cook you something. Passing through the kitchen, he turned on the light in the living room so that his flat would look less gloomy. While roaming through his fridge, looking for a good meal idea, he periodically stole several glances over the counter. In the living room, Amber was still walking around, a bit wild, still on the defensive. She explored this new environment by looking around, admiring the ornaments. Unfortunately, she didn't find much to pique her interest. It was a bland house, almost too bland. There are no clues about the occupants' lives. He's a serial killer. Take advantage of Tristan's being distracted by a packet of noodles. She escaped to the hallway and tried to find the bathroom to relieve her an urgent need. She found it quickly enough, and before returning to the hallway, she noticed that all the floors were wide open except for one. Strangely, before she even had enough time to think about it, she was drawn to that doorway. Intrigued, Amber felt magnetically attracted to the slightly open door. Just one peek was all she wanted, but she struggled to see anything through the crack. Was this Bluebeard's cabinet? Excuse me? Who the fuck is Bluebeard? A frightening tomb where Tristan stored the corpses of his former wives? The little girl pushed the door open, entered the room, and switched the light on. What the